Hi guys, it's Pal Howie here, and I wanted to talk today a little bit about what's going on in the UK today with coronavirus, and really about fear. I want to talk about fear. So yesterday I was hanging out with some family members and we were talking about the coronavirus. By the time I went to bed, I had kind of decided I wasn't going to do certain things because of this virus in the country. And then I woke up in the morning and I thought, I think I've kind of let the fear become bigger than it should be in my life. Now, I also found out today as I went around to the shops, a lot of the shops are not stocking antibacterial hand gel anymore because it's all run out. So a lot of people are buying and stockpiling this kind of thing. So I don't know if we call that panic buying or being sensible. I really don't know. But I was thinking a little bit about this virus and I did a little bit of research, and I need to explain some things to you, to anybody who's interested and anybody who's worried about this virus at the moment. And one of the things I've learned on my travels and in life, and I'm going to bring this back to my new book, which is Fear of Success, because it's about fear. And it's about how we hold and how we handle our fear. Now, I did a lot of traveling, and what I discovered is a lot of our fear is useless. A lot of our fear is created, and it's very good because the ego then uses that fear to stop us from doing things, to stop us from pursuing success, for getting out in the world, to stop us from being ourselves. And fear of disease can be one of those things. But what I would say in this situation, obviously, it's very important. This is a serious virus that has serious consequences, and we expect the people whose job it is to look after our health, so the World Health Organization, all the governments and things like that, to be sensible. And that's their job, to be sensible, to look at things and take reasonable precautions, but not to overreact and not to panic. And I think that one of the things that happens is we have the media that gets involved and decides to start saying a lot of negative things, and there's a lot of opinion about things. So I'm going to try and keep this not about my opinion, but about the facts. Okay? And I think I don't want to make people more scared, but I think what we're looking at here is a fear of a misdirected fear, okay? So, and this is actually something that I've wanted to talk about for a while, even before coronavirus came around. And I'm going to take it a little bit slow because this is a big subject and this is a big issue, and I don't want to replace a fear that you might be experiencing for coronavirus with something else that makes you freak out anymore. I don't want you to freak out. It doesn't help us to panic. Panic is a problem, okay? What we need to do is be calm, breathe in and out, and take sensible action. Yeah? Sometimes maybe a little bit careful. Maybe we'll be a little bit over careful. One of the things that I did when I was traveling, when I started out, was I carried an awful lot of water with me when I was walking and hiking. And I would carry, I think, about 1 litre of reserve and about maybe up to about 2 litres that I would actually drink during my walk. And why am I talking about this? Water. Water is very important in life. And so I had to carry with me what I felt was a sensible amount of water. If I carried too much, I would make my journey very, very difficult because obviously I was walking. And it was always a question as in, do I fill up my reservoir with a lot of water that's very heavy to carry and makes it more difficult? Or do I just start with my reserve? So sometimes what I would do is leave it till later to leave the walk, drink a lot of fluid before I left, and then just carry my reserve. And it became less of an issue when I was in areas that had a lot of cafes or places like that I could stop and get a drink. When I started, I was walking in areas where there were no cafes, there was no water sources, and I had heard stories about people running out of water in those areas. So I know that sounds silly, but to me, that's the most basic way of bringing it back to what's important in life. We can only survive for so long without water. So the amount of water that we carry is critical. And the same goes for a virus, a bug, or something like that. We have to take sensible precautions to not expose ourselves to diseases, viruses, germs. But at the same time, if we get too crazy, and I know that I have a risk factor for getting obsessive compulsive disorder. I have had problems with washing my hands too many times in the past and damaging my skin from overwashing my hands. So it's very important for me to find that balance of, do I leave the house? Do I go and do something? Do I travel on public transport? Do I use a public bathroom? And so looking at these things sensibly, but also, you know, I mean, that's it, isn't it? Finding that balance of, let me do this sensibly, let me not go too far either way. So now I'm going to tell you about something else, and I hope not to freak you out, but it is very, very serious, and it is very, very important, and it's possibly something that really the regular media, the TVs and newspapers, should really be talking to you about, and they're not. So I'm going to do it. The buck stops here, right? Now, one of the things that isn't really being explained, as far as I can see, is how and why the coronavirus may kill people. And there are various syndromes that can come as a result of that virus. Now, it has a very good success rate in terms of survival. It was more than 97% of people who became infected with coronavirus were surviving, and now it's gone up. So you've got, you know, we're talking it's probably nearer to 98% survival rate at the moment. And that's constantly changing as people are getting better at detecting it and knowing how to treat it. So it's pretty good, right? The problem is it is transferred very quickly between people. But we've got a very good rate of people surviving. And one of the reasons and one of the ways that coronavirus can kill people is through what we would kind of call secondary problems, okay? So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person. And one of those, a major one of those, is sepsis, which you may have heard of. It used to be called things like blood poisoning, septicemia. So you may have heard it under one of those other names. Now, sepsis is really when an infection and your body's immune response to that infection gets so overwhelming that the body cannot cope with that anymore. And this is something that's been around for a long time. And the numbers for the number of people in the world who die from septicemia, sepsis, and blood poisoning, which is the same thing, just different names, obviously. You know, it's hard sometimes to get these things right because even the regular media call things by the wrong name and I think they like to feed the panic, in fairness. So when we talk about these things, we've got a sort of colloquial terms for how we call things and then the medical terms. Now, this is particularly complicated because for sepsis, and now we're tending to call it sepsis, and there is an organisation called the Sepsis Trust, which I highly recommend you go and look at their website. What it is because this is a situation where the body cannot cope with the level of infection and with the body's immune response, it's often secondary to other issues. So, for example, we might be saying somebody's dying from coronavirus, but what they're really dying from is sepsis. And the same thing is true of many other causes of sepsis. The biggest reason for people to get sepsis are things like stomach bugs, pretty common, or any other kinds of respiratory infections, so types of flu, things like that. Can also be skin infections. It could be a cut or it could be a skin infection that can then lead to sepsis. the numbers are difficult because very often, as I say, they are secondary to something else that may happen. So somebody might have an operation for something, say for example a skin disorder, and then develop sepsis. So it might be said that they died from one issue, but it was actually the sepsis in the end that caused their death. So I'm going to hit you with some big numbers now, and I don't want you to freak out. Take a deep breath. This is the world, and this is what I'm going to tell you about the numbers. Now, I just want you to remember one really important thing, and that is that these numbers were true yesterday. These numbers were true from last week, and these numbers have been true for 5, 10, 100 years, okay? And there is a big shift in the medical community in the UK, especially, to explaining and understanding sepsis, okay? So we're hoping that these numbers will get better, right? And, okay, so I'm going to tell you that last year in the UK alone, 46,000 people were identified as having died from sepsis. So that's about 4,000 people each month. In fact, actually, the Sepsis Trust says 48,000, so it's 4,000 a month. That's a lot of people. But we're not seeing headlines saying 4,000 people died this month from sepsis. It's roughly the same number as die from heart disease in a year. And we're not seeing headlines saying heart disease. And for any other secondary cause, not secondary, sorry, that sounds wrong. It's like we say that the biggest killer in the UK is heart disease. But as you can see, it's about the same number as for sepsis. And it is a big number. It's a big number to take into consideration. And the sepsis can be caused by many, many different bugs and infections. So in a weird way, the fact that everyone's gone out and bought hand gel is a really, really good thing. The fact that so many people are taking particular care of whether they have a respiratory infection is really, really good. And, you know, that we're washing our hands more is hopefully going to reduce the number of bugs that people are going to be getting. And if they start to feel that they've got trouble breathing, which is one of the big indicators of sepsis, they will be contacting the medical health professionals. And so basically, sepsis is a funny one because it's a lot like, you know, basically it's like coronavirus. You can have flu-like symptoms. So it can be temperature, can be trouble breathing. It can be feeling just really awful. And I would highly recommend you go and check out the information on how to deal with this on the Sepsis Trust or St John's Ambulance, the Red Cross, any first aid trainer. Now I'm going to tell you something really bad about myself. I did my first aid training pretty much probably about this day last year or a little bit around there. I did my first aid training. First aid training has changed, and so they're talking much, much more about sepsis and what to do and how to react to it. Now, a family member of mine had a very, very serious issue with sepsis before and was hospitalised and had IV antibiotics. Yeah, and so last year, at a certain point, there I was with another family member and they were not feeling very well, and we were all sitting around saying, oh, maybe it's a stomach bug, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And none of us, it basically, in the middle of the night, I woke up and went, oh, it's an infection. And luckily, we were able to get this family member some antibiotics and to get them to start taking the antibiotics in a reasonable amount of time, and they were able to recover. And I'd done my first aid training, and I had learned all about sepsis, and I've had family members be very ill with that before. But very often we're not calling it sepsis. Very often we're calling it a secondary infection. We're calling it this, we're calling it that, we're calling it the other. And one of the things that first aid trainers and the health professionals in this country and the Sepsis Trust are doing is trying to say, let's flag it up. Let's call it sepsis. Let's make sure that people know what the signs are that they should be looking out for. And it's really tricky. It's really tricky. But do check out the Sepsis Trust. They also, I think they have free training packs for schools. So if you've got any relationship with a school, go check it out. And it's possible that we could help to reduce this number of about 4,000 deaths a month. And that's bigger than many forms of cancer. And it's kind of crazy that we're not talking about sepsis. It's kind of crazy that we're having this health issue, that we're having daily updates from the World Health Organization, and we're not talking about sepsis. And what we should be talking about is this can be caused by any infection. This can be caused by a stomach bug. This can be caused by a respiratory infection. So what we should be doing is the same thing we're talking about doing for COVID-19. I think it's called the coronavirus, which is, number one, I'm going to call this number one, keeping a social distance of 1 meter. If you are standing in a queue, if you are on public transport, I mean, how close are we on the tube sometimes? But especially if people are coughing or you're coughing, maintain 1 meter distance from anybody else. Starters, okay? Wash your hands, clearly. Especially when you go to the bathroom. Wash your hands before food prep. Wash your hands when you're handling meat. All that stuff, you know? It's not rocket science, it's basic. But the most important thing as well is if you do start to feel that you may be suffering, or somebody in your family is suffering from this is why I'm not a newsreader. Okay, is suffering from suspected sepsis, call 999. Call 999 in the UK. You can also call 112, I believe it is now, or go online. But here's the big thing about sepsis, and I know it's 17 minutes in, but I don't want to rush you because it's a big shift in our thinking to suddenly think this is probably the biggest killer in the UK today. And it's, you know, it's already killing 4,000 people a month, okay? The biggest thing is speed. Speed, 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 speed. Don't wait 17 minutes to take action. Because the sooner that the person who is suffering from suspected sepsis, I'm never going to make it as a newsreader, as soon as that person is normally treated with antibiotics, every second counts. Every second counts to getting that infection and getting their immune response under control so that they can survive. Every second counts. And it's so important to not hang around and to not wait and to help them get the antibiotics on board immediately, to get into hospital where they can be given intravenous antibiotics if necessary. It's so important. It's 4,000 people a month dying from sepsis. Okay, and this is the health issue that we need to be discussing. It is related to coronavirus because it is also sepsis killing people who have coronavirus around the world. But it is not just coronavirus. So yes, please wash your hands. Yes, wear a face mask if you want to. But it will probably be touching your face that's going to transfer the germs. So I've been wearing gloves lately and I sit there just going like this. I really want to touch my face. I really want to itch. I want to touch my hair. I want to brush my hair away. So to stop me from doing that, I'm wearing gloves. And it's also to stop me from washing my hands so many times that they crack and bleed. It's important that we try not to get broken skin. If you've got broken skin, cover it up, put a plaster over it. We don't have to be, don't be a hero. Don't be a hero. One of the most important things I learned about traveling is you have to be really careful about things like cracked feet, about frostbite. Lip gloss is amazing. Put your lip gloss on so you don't get cracked lips, because obviously as soon as your skin breaks, infection's going to get in there much quicker. And also use a nail file as well, because when you've got jagged nails, you're more likely to scratch yourself or scratch other people, or catch a nail, pull it off, and again you've got an exposed bit of nail bed there. So those are the important things that we have to do to make sure that we stay safe and well. Now, I'm going to go on to talk about something else. I know it's a bit of a long one. And and also to help you come down, because I know it's probably a lot of information. And one of the things when we talk about fear, sometimes we get distracted by these fears where we're worrying about one thing or another. And what we're not doing is really looking at the big fears. We're not looking at the big problems. And so I know that probably wasn't a very welcome thing for you to hear. And I suppose, and as I say, if we're having to think more seriously about infection, it probably helps us as a population to stop and slow down other infections that can be causing death. And that's really great. That's really great. I'm going to talk about something else now. And the reason I'm going to talk about this is, again, it's talking about, see, look, how many times do I touch my face? Talking about real fear and about fake fear and the problems that come up. So in my book, now this is a weird thing, like what's happened this week. And I have had more than one occasion this week, and this is the first time this has happened in a really long time, where I have been contacted by a person who has basically been there has tried to badmouth somebody who's a friend of mine or somebody I'm working with and tell me all kinds of bad things about them, or to sort of sling mud at me and say that I shouldn't be working with me, there's something wrong with me, that I'm sort of involved with various people in various projects, which is a bit weird that it should happen, all in this week, which is very strange. And so anyway, one of the things that I talk about in my book, which I'm going to flag up there, is jealousy. And one of the reasons that we fear success is that we get the haters, If you're successful, if you're making money, if you're achieving anything that other people want to do, very often we will be exposed to jealousy, hatred, negativity, all kinds of negative things that people will throw at us. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. And I go into that in the book, talking about jealousy. And it's one of those things that I will say we have to be sensible about as well. Because although jealousy, we could sit there and go, what's the old school rhyme? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but nails will never hurt me. But at the same time, jealousy can be quite scary. And not just jealousy, it can also be the people who love us a bit too much and who are a little bit stalker type. And I had a bit of that as well this week. It's a lot, isn't it? And it's really holding that fear. And those are things that I talk about in the book, because what I talk about is, I talk about one specific situation where, very sadly, somebody was murdered by somebody who was a stalker or somebody who was jealous of the fame, or whatever reasons that they had, whatever mental health problems they had, that ended up with them doing something so dreadful. Now, obviously, what I've been exposed to this week is nothing similar to that, but it was still a little bit surprising. And also it took me a minute to really kind of say, well, what is the situation? And my response in that is to go back to the person they're talking about and discuss it, and to see what the truth is of the situation. And that's when it's very important to know the people you're working with, to have a good vibe with them, to understand what's really going on. And the other thing to do is to really have a plan, of how we're going to deal with people like that. So, for example, social media. I've experienced this an awful lot in social media, where somebody might, be a troll and might put some negative things, or they might be a spammer. They might go online and put some, please buy my shit. Sorry, I used the word. Please, I think, grow up, get a better, Sometimes we can be a little bit spammy ourselves. Sometimes, like this, you might think, this is tragic. She's using the virus to sell the book, which is a terrible thing to say. But I suppose the thing is, what I'm really talking about is fear, and I'm talking about these situations that have come up this week for me, and feeling the need to discuss this whole concept of what's real and what's not. We have to be careful, and this is true of anybody. It's not about people in the public eye. And I did get kind of negative the other day. I was sent a petition following some very sad events, and obviously the very sad death of Caroline Flack. But it was all about protecting celebrities' privacy. And I thought, no, because I think we all deserve the same treatment. We all deserve the same respect from the media, whether we think we're a celebrity or not. And so anyway, but the thing is, we do have to take seriously when somebody is overstepping boundaries and doing certain things. So, you know, somebody is making any kind of statement online on a social media platform like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that. It's very important to have a way of dealing with that. And I always say, you know, you can't back down to bullies because then they win. But we don't have to get into a fight. We don't have to hit back. And so very often I just block people, I report them. And I don't want to engage in debate with somebody who is abusive. Delete, block. You know, it's sometimes I think I wish it was as easy in the real world to deal with people as it sometimes feels like on social media. And it's very important that we take action. And it's exactly the same as having a boundary. Again, when I'm traveling, I have to be very cautious in certain places. I always say be very careful in the marketplace. And to a certain extent, that's what social media is. We're out, we're public. It's not really private. You know, when I open my emails, that's not private. That's kind of, I'm opening the door and I'm letting people in. And that door will be closed very quickly if somebody abuses that. And I had to learn that actually when I was teaching Zumba. And I always think that time I spent teaching was such a huge lesson for me, to know that there are times when I have to tell somebody they have to leave my class. I have to tell somebody they are no longer welcome. And then I have to really hope that they don't show up and they don't make a scene. And I have to, you know, hope that people will respect when I say no. And I think I was very lucky. I think I was very lucky that I didn't get, that I was able to, you know, create an environment where I was safe and I felt safe. And but it was very important to me to, and I will say one of these things, I know it's really weird. I always remember one day, and I was cycling along, and somebody who had come to our class had sent me an email. And it was a really, I felt it was abusive. Not directly at me, but with the language and the types of people he was talking about. It was not acceptable. And I went and I got on my bike and I cycled to another class, and I was thinking about what was I going to reply. And I actually had other people teaching for me at the time. And I was going to reply to him and say, you know, here's a final warning. Don't ever talk like this to me again. It wasn't in the class, it was in an email. And I was cycling along and I thought, well, if he'd actually said that to somebody teaching for me, I would ban him right there and then. And I realised that I was planning to treat myself worse than I would have treated somebody who was working for me. So, for example, if he had behaved that way to somebody working for me, I would have banned him immediately. But I was about to give him a final warning and give him one more chance. And that made me realise, no, I'm not going to give this person another chance, because I should treat myself as well as I'm treating the people working for me, the people who I am working with. And it was important for me to set up that boundary. And I think in a weird kind of way, this has brought it back to the whole thing about the virus and about sepsis. We need to take decisive action, and we need to take it soon. Speed is of the essence. So, you know, one of the things that really hold us back, and has probably held me back in my life, from really going after the kind of success and the kind of things I want to be doing is being visible, being noticeable, being out there, being public, and being exposed. Because sometimes people do attack us, and it can be verbally, it can be online, it can be physically. And what I was thinking about this, I was walking along and I thought, I went back to one time when I was a kid at school, and I used to get into fights like every day because I was trying to protect people who I loved and who were smaller, who got bullied a lot. So I would step in to try and protect them. And I became like, the gunslinger, the fastest gunslinger in the school. This was in primary school, middle school. And I was the kid, I was the toughest kid in the class, in the school. And so that meant that at break times and lunch times, the boys that wanted to be seen as, big and tough had to come and have a fight with me. They didn't win. I've got 2 brothers and 2 sisters, But anyway, but I didn't enjoy it. I never enjoyed it. I didn't want to be that kid. I didn't want to have that time in the playground. And the only boys I liked were the ones that didn't want to beat me up, which was good. But I had a reputation as being, tough kid. And so to be tough, they had to beat me up. And anyway, what happened was when I went to high school, I decided I was going to be a girl. And I just did not want to fight in the playground anymore. So I made a decision when I went to high school, and I decided that when it came time for the first lunch hour, and somebody was going to come up and try and have a fight with me, and I knew it would be some kid from my old school, in my year, I decided that I was just going to let them punch me. And I said, right, do you know what? I am not going to hit back. Whatever, because I never started a fight. I never went up to another kid and went, I just, I'm not going to just be beaten up. Not going to happen. But I decided I was going to get beaten up. I decided I was going to go to the middle school, the high school. And I figured at a certain point, if I didn't hit back and I didn't get into fights, they'd forget eventually, and I was like, what, I'm so sick of this. I hate this. I've got no little brothers and sisters to defend in this school. There's no point anymore. I want to be a girl. I want them to think I'm a girl. I don't want to be the fastest gunslinger in town anymore. I want to, I'm moving to a new town. So the first lunchtime rolled around and I was walking around and a kid came up and tried to start a fight with me from my old school. Hey, right, now we're at this school. This time I'm going to get you. This time I'm going to be the biggest, fastest. And I just stood there and I said, I'm not going to fight you. And I stood there and I was like, right, if you hit me, you hit me. That's it. If you hit me, you hit me. And it did work. And do you know how long it took? That was it. That was it. Because I refused to fight. And I refused to fight back on that one day, that one lunch hour. It was over. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. I thought it was going to take months. And I'm not going to get into thinking, oh, why didn't I do that before? No. I won't go there. But it's about planning response and deciding what's important. And for me, in that time, it was more important to move on and be the person that I wanted to be. I wanted to be a girl, I wanted boys to have crushes on me, not to have vendettas with me. And it was really important for me not to be the kid that was always fighting in the playground because it took up an awful lot of my time. So all I would say is if you're having a problem with jealousy, if you're having a problem with being attacked, maybe take a minute and try and come up with a different plan, different solution. There are millions of amazing teachers out there, from Sun Tzu to Thich Nhat Hanh, from Martin Luther King, to be able to respond to a situation where we don't have to respond to something by attacking. We can stop. We can say, no, I'm not dealing with this. We can block people. We can delete their profiles. I would just say, please don't run away. I mean, it's good to run away sometimes. Running away is all right. But don't let the bullies win. Excuse me. Because the thing is that if they win, they lose. You know? If somebody wins by being, by lying, by bullying, by pressuring, they don't win, they lose, you know? And then we both lose. We both lose if we let go of something that we really love and really want to share with the world, and we don't share that. Then it's not just us losing, it's all the people that don't hear us. So I talk about, it seems really simple in the book. I talk about a lot of analogies, but let me just give you an example of, you know, say you've got a beautiful, beautiful voice and people around you can't handle it and they're jealous, and some are scared for you because they're scared that you're, you know, if you become a singer, you're going to attract all the negatives in the industry. And some people push you and you have all these different things going on. But it's a complicating situation of just having a beautiful voice. And when you share that, you share that with all the people out in the world as well. And so somebody who's got a different voice, not a worse voice, but a different voice, tries to shut you down and tell you you're no good, or bullies you, or tries to keep you in the background. I think there's some films about that. I'm pretty sure there's some musicals and things like that. In fact, it's a bit like Singing in the Rain, isn't it? You know, where the girl has a beautiful voice and the other one wants to keep using her voice. If you haven't seen it, it's a really cool film. And in the end, it cannot last. It cannot last. You have to be true to who you are. And the truth is really the thing that we are pursuing here. Whether it's talking about viruses and sepsis, and how important it is to be careful when it comes to germs, and also being careful when it comes to interactions with other people, and not letting things get so big that they destroy us. You know, whether it's getting into a fight with somebody or whether it's allowing somebody to bully us, you know, we have to set up barriers and boundaries. And it's very similar to what we're trying to do. What all the health organisations are trying to do is set up sensible boundaries, sensible ways of handling this problem, so that we can live our lives and we can get on and do all the things that we want to do. That we can go out and enjoy ourselves and hang out and go down the pub and go to movies and go to book fairs and go to Fashion Week, and we can go and do all those things and enjoy ourselves. And not just go and hide out, you know, because that's not living. So we have to protect life and protect our lives, but also we have to enjoy life. We have to get out there and enjoy life as well as everything else, because what's it all for if we don't do that? We have to find a balance of living life and not freaking out and panicking about everything. And so I hope you can take the first step to enjoying your life. And I really hope that if somebody has been getting at you and giving you a nasty time on social media, you turn around and you say, no, I'm going to go and stand up and I'm going to go be me. And I don't have to hit back. I don't have to get into a fight. I don't have to be negative. I don't have to say anything mean about anybody else. I don't. I just have to be me. That's it. Just be me. It's easy. It's so easy. Just be me. I still can't say suspected sepsis, whatever I was trying to say before, but I can say all the rest of it. So it's a long one. I know I've dropped a big thing of information on you, but just remember the facts that I told you about, the truth that I told you about was true yesterday, it was true last month, it was true last year, and it's true for the last 5 years, okay? This is not breaking news, but maybe it should be, okay? Take care, Take it easy. Wash your hands. Don't let people put you down. Block, delete. Okay? Take care. Love you. Bye.